Hey everybody, my name is Ananda Murthy and today I'm going to talk to you about social stratification. To start off, what is social stratification? It's basically the ranking of an individual member in a society in terms of the amount of power he or she has, the prestige, as well as the wealth they possess. It's entirely about the status. It's about the ranking of an individual in society. So Max Weber, a German sociologist, through his various researches, came up with three major dimensions, as mentioned before, which stratification can be measured, namely power, prestige, and wealth. Now, what is power? Power is the degree to which a person can influence or control others. So Hitler had a lot of power and he used it. He controlled others and, political power, right? Then prestige. Prestige is the degree of respect, favorable regard, or importance accorded to an individual by members of society. So Obama, we give Obama so much respect and prestige because of the things he has done. And wealth is the objects or symbols owned by human beings which have value attached to them. So, I have more wealth than you because I own branded clothing, whereas you don't. And, that's an indicator that my social status is higher than yours. An important thing which people kind of mix up when talking about power and prestige especially is that sometimes, they aren't the same thing. Power is more due to fear, whereas prestige is more, sincere respect given by others. And you can see an example of Hitler. Hitler was ruling through fear, whereas Obama is more about, like he earns his respect by the things he does. And that's a major difference between both. So Weber not only talked about the major dimensions of stratification, but he also talks about three major systems of power in which society can be categorized into. So first of all, there's social status. What is social status? It's about position, superiority. For example, ISKCON. When you're at the status of a sannyasi or a GBC, naturally we give respect to them because they have a higher position in society. That's social status, your positioning. Then there's class power. What is class power? It refers to unequal access to resources. Sometimes people have more access to certain resources than others, making you more vulnerable because you have to kind of give in to them in order to get the resources. And lastly, political power is people in political positions, Hitler, who can influence what laws and rules are passed and how they're applied and this excessive power can be used over others, as after all they have superiority in their position. Not only do and people in political power rather not only have superiority, but they also have class power because they're in charge of resources and they have social status. So in a sense, if you have political power, you kind of are on the top of the, food chain, so to speak. Some people may have two or more of these, So there's different approaches to the study of stratification. And the first approach being subjective, right? It's about a person. So let's say there's a sociologist trying to find out my social position or class. So the first approach he could take would be to approach me, and it's a subjective approach. So it's a personal approach. He can ask me, and I can tell him everything about myself. Another approach to finding out my class would be the reputation approach. So asking my friends around or asking my close ones in my society surrounding me, asking how they see me in a sense, right? How they see me, what do they see me as? Lastly, there's an objective approach. The objective approach is, the observers place me into the various classes based on indicators such as my salary, my education, my occupation, my income, my degree, my job. So those are the three ways in which you can find out someone's social status. Now the thing is, people are like, oh my God, I'm a middle class person, and I'll be stuck a middle class person my whole life. But it's not like that. You can change your social status, and that's known as social mobility. Now there's two possible changes in social mobility. There's vertical mobility and horizontal mobility. Now vertical mobility is more about bigger change, like changing your class. For example, I go from middle class to upper class based on my raise of salary or raise of income. I can work so hard and and be dedicated, and in that way earn so much that my social positioning based on my salary increases a level, and I go from middle to upper class, right? That's vertical mobility. And then there's horizontal mobility. It's like the small changes within the class. So now we can talk about, like, how do you know your social status in the first place? Like, aren't you born and then you have to somehow, where does all this fit in? So there's types of social status. There's two major types in stratification: ascribed and achieved. Now, ascribed is obviously what you're born with, that stamp you're given. Well, they're not given a stamp, but hypothetically. So you're given a stamp, and you are of this gender. You are a male. You are born into a Swiss Indo family, and you are your parents' income is this, and like, it's all ascribed. Whereas achieved status is more about what you do to make of your, like, what you do to make yourself in a certain position in society. So it's about the results of your actions. Right. So elaborating a bit more on this topic, because it's not that easy to understand. Achieved status is depends on their merit, right? That's how Mother Urmila describes it, as it depends on their merit. So for example, their work and activities, their education, their job, their salary determines the status. And there's certain systems in society which actually value ascribed status more than achieved status. And that's kind of scary. Like, if you're born a girl, and if you're born in a middle class black family, then perhaps you don't have as many advantages in society as you would have if you were born in an upper class white family. So that's ascribed status. So, and the differences between these societies can be represented by three different stratification systems, namely caste society, mixed society, and open class society. So what I was talking about how there's certain differentiations between ascribed and achieved status, it falls under these three categories. So there's caste society. Caste society is only about ascribed status. So it's very closed. There's no vertical mobility, hardly any horizontal mobility, and there's no achieved status. Even if you're earning 100,000 a year, if you are not from a white family, you are not considered socially superior. Whereas a mixed society is all about ascribed status as well as achieved status. So it's like half-half. And the good thing about this is their vertical and horizontal mobility. I think, in my opinion, ISKCON is definitely a mixed society, because we have ascribed status in it. How sometimes males are given more importance than females, like, especially and there's many the different not conspiracies, but conflicts between whether we should have female gurus or not, but male gurus, yes, all the time. And Lastly, we have open class society. This is all about achieved status. It sounds like an ideal society, don't you think so? Like, you make who you are. You are not born a certain way. ISKCON also kind of falls under there, but there is ascribed status, whereas in open class there is no ascribed, and there's vertical and horizontal mobility in open class. Nowadays most societies pride more in achieved status, with as less emphasis on ascribed status as possible. The moves against racism and classism are mostly, in a sense, directed against ascribed status. Equality is being fought for. So, moving on, some interesting concepts about stratification. There's something called power elite. It's a concept developed primarily by sociologist C. Ryder Mills. And this refers to a small number of individuals who possess extreme amounts of power and make decisions which affect an entire culture. In ISKCON, I think it would be the GBC, which have the power and affect the whole culture, our whole movement. There's a quote from C. Wright Mills' book, which I really liked. Whether they do or do not make decisions is less important than the fact that they occupy such pivotal positions. Their failure to act, their failure to make decisions, is itself an act that is of greater consequence than the decision they make. So in a sense, even if they make a decision which ends up bad for others, it's more important that they make a decision, even if it's bad or good, than the consequences of the decisions. So imagine if you have that power in your hands. Wow, it's a big responsibility. Another very important concept is conspicuous consumption. It's a concept developed by Thorstein Veblen, which refers to the practice of using wealth to purchase things, to show off to others that you have wealth. So in a way, yes, it's show off. It's funny how in some societies, if you show off your wealth, you're considered of a low status, whereas in other societies, showing off your wealth is, big deal. So, but what people don't understand is that there's various kinds of wealth other than just money. For example, there's something called as cultural capital. It's a sociological concept spread by Pierre Bourdieu. It's about how can I explain? It's about the cultural capital. He defines it as non-financial assets that involve educational, social, and intellectual knowledge provided to children who grow up in non-wealthy but highly educated and intellectually sophisticated families. A wealth of culture. Some people have traveled across the world, they have had new experiences, they learn new things, and they are just so much more superior class-wise and also knowledge-wise, and they just have a vast amount of cultural knowledge and experience, which by far passes superiority of people which don't have that much experience in life, but got it the easy way based on their family income. They never really did much in life to get money or accumulate wealth. Sure, they can show off their wealth and be like, we're rich, but are they really rich and superior in that sense? Social capital. It's a type of social capital, cultural capital. Social capital is about the people you know. It's about networking and how good you are at it. Maybe that same Mr. Jim. He sits at home all day. His parents are rich, so he has a lot of money. And we have Mr. Ananda here, which doesn't have much money, but has a lot of friends and travels a lot. Who do you think is more superior, class-wise? Sure, he has more money. Sure, he's born into maybe he has a better ascribed and achieved status. He has a job, a salary, occupation. But I think that having friends and having life experiences, maybe socially, I have a higher cultural capital, in that sense, and thus I'm more superior culturally and socially. It's a social capital is also referred to as the disposition to create, maintain, and develop such networks that constitute real cultural capital. Now, to end off this beautiful presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about socioeconomic status. Now, this is extremely important. It's like the measure of a person's work experience and an individual or family's economic and social position in relation to others in the society, based on 4 factors. Basically, it's like your biodata. It tells you who you are and what you are made up of. It's defined by 4 factors, namely education, occupation, income, and wealth. So, for example, now, if you wanted to test me, my intelligence, without actually giving me an IQ test, which I kind of did yesterday, and I found out my IQ, and it was pretty good actually. But no, my point is, if you had to find my intelligence level, what would you do? You would look at my socioeconomic status. And what is that? You would look at my family background, my parents' income, my parents' occupations. And in this way, you could determine so many things about me. You could determine whether I'm a criminal, or my health, if I have any health problems. Or you can also predict so many things from socioeconomic status, including divorce rates and many other important factors and about a person's well-being in life. So I think I'll end my presentation there, and I hope you liked it, and I really enjoyed sharing with you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or comment on the video below. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, have a beautiful day.